In 1274, Kublai Khan assembled the largest naval invasion force in human history. 900 warships, 40,000 Mongol and Korean warriors. The most feared army on the planet, coming to conquer Japan. The Japanese had 7,000 samurai to defend the entire island. They were outnumbered 6-1. They had no navy. They had never faced gunpowder weapons or Mongol cavalry tactics. Every military expert predicted Japan would fall within weeks. Then, on the night of November 19th, nature intervened. A massive typhoon struck the Mongol fleet anchored off the Japanese coast. By dawn, 13,000 Mongol warriors were dead. 300 ships lay at the bottom of the sea. The invasion was over. The Japanese called it Kamikaze, the divine wind. They believed the gods themselves had saved Japan. 7 years later, Kublai Khan tried again, this time with 4,500 ships and 140,000 soldiers, the largest amphibious invasion in history until D-Day. And once again, a typhoon destroyed the entire fleet in a single night. This is the story of how two storms defeated the Mongol Empire and changed the course of Asian history forever. This is the story of when nature became the ultimate weapon of war. To understand why these typhoons mattered so much, you need to understand who the Mongols were in 1274. The Mongol Empire was the largest land empire in human history. They'd conquered China, Korea, Russia, Persia, and Central Asia. They'd destroyed armies 10 times their size. They'd never lost a major campaign. Genghis Khan's grandson, Kublai Khan, now ruled this empire. He'd just finished conquering China after decades of war. The Song dynasty had fallen. Korea had surrendered. Every nation in Asia either submitted to Mongol rule or was destroyed. Only Japan remained independent. Kublai Khan sent envoys to Japan demanding submission. The Japanese emperor refused. So Kublai Khan did what Mongols always did when someone said no. He assembled an invasion fleet. But there was a problem. The Mongols were the greatest land army in history, but they'd never conducted a major naval invasion. They were horse warriors from the steppes of Mongolia. They didn't have a navy. They didn't have naval combat experience. So they forced the Koreans to build the ships and forced Chinese sailors to crew them. They loaded 40,000 Mongol and Korean warriors onto 900 vessels and set sail for Japan in November 1274. The timing was terrible. November is typhoon season in the Sea of Japan. But the Mongols didn't know this. They were land warriors who'd spent their entire lives on horseback. They knew nothing about seasonal weather patterns at sea. The Japanese knew. They'd been fishing these waters for centuries. They knew that massive storms swept through every autumn, but they couldn't have predicted what was about to happen. On November 19, 1274, the Mongol fleet anchored in Hakata Bay on the northern coast of Kyushu. They'd already landed troops and fought several battles against Japanese samurai. The fighting had been brutal but inconclusive. The Mongols had superior numbers and gunpowder weapons, bombs and fire arrows that Japanese warriors had never seen. The samurai fought with incredible courage but couldn't match Mongol discipline and tactics. That night, Mongol commanders decided to retreat to their ships and attack again in the morning with reinforcements. That decision saved the samurai and doomed the Mongols. Around midnight, the wind started to pick up. Within hours, it had become a full typhoon. Waves 20 feet high smashed into the anchored Mongol fleet. Ships collided with each other in the darkness. Anchor ropes snapped. Vessels were driven onto the rocks. The Mongols had made a critical tactical error. They chained their ships together for defense, a common practice in river and coastal warfare. When enemy ships approached, the chained vessels acted as a floating fortress. But in a typhoon, this was suicide. When one ship started to sink, it dragged others down with it. When one vessel was driven onto the rocks, the chains pulled more ships into the danger zone. The entire fleet became a death trap. By dawn, the storm had passed. The sea was calm again. But 300 Mongol ships were gone. 13,000 warriors were dead, drowned, crushed, or washed ashore, where Japanese defenders killed them. The surviving Mongol commanders made the only decision they could. They abandoned the invasion and sailed back to Korea with what remained of their fleet. Japan had been saved, but not by samurai swords or brilliant tactics. By a storm. The Japanese called it Kamikaze, divine wind. They believed the storm god had answered their prayers and destroyed the invaders. Shinto priests declared that Japan was protected by the gods themselves and could never be conquered. Kublai Khan didn't believe in Japanese gods. He believed in Mongol military power, and he wasn't finished. For the next 7 years, Kublai Khan prepared for a second invasion. This time, he would do it right. He ordered the construction of the largest fleet in human history. Korean and Chinese shipyards worked for years building vessels. Mongol commanders studied naval warfare. They trained Marines. They developed amphibious assault tactics. By 1281, the invasion force was ready. The numbers were staggering. 4,500 ships, 140,000 Mongol, Korean, and Chinese warriors. The largest amphibious invasion in history, 7 times larger than D-Day in World War II. The Japanese had 7 years to prepare as well. They'd built a stone wall along the entire coast of Hakata Bay, 10 feet high, hundreds of yards long. They'd trained more samurai. They developed tactics to counter Mongol weapons. But everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. You can't stop 140,000 warriors with walls and courage. Japan was going to fall. The invasion began in June 1281. The Mongol fleet sailed in 2 massive waves. The Eastern Route Army from Korea, 40,000 warriors. The Southern Route Army from China, 100,000 warriors. They were supposed to link up at Hakata Bay and launch a coordinated assault. But the Eastern Army arrived first, in mid-June, and couldn't wait. They attacked immediately. The fighting was even more brutal than 1274. Mongol warriors stormed ashore in waves. Japanese defenders fought from behind their stone wall, using arrows, spears, and swords to hold the beaches. Small Japanese boats attacked the Mongol fleet at night, setting ships on fire and assassinating commanders. For weeks the battle raged. The Mongols couldn't break through the wall. The Japanese couldn't drive the Mongols back to sea. It was a bloody stalemate. Then in mid-August, the Southern Route Army finally arrived. 100,000 fresh troops, 3,000 more ships. The combined Mongol force was now so overwhelming that Japanese defeat seemed certain. On August 15, 1281, Mongol commanders prepared for the final assault. They would attack the wall with their entire army, 140,000 warriors hitting the same point simultaneously. Nothing could stop them. That night, the wind began to rise. By midnight, it had become another typhoon, even more powerful than 1274. For 2 days, the storm raged. 40-foot waves smashed the Mongol fleet. Winds exceeding 100 miles per hour tore ships apart. The vessels that had been chained together for defense once again became death traps. When the storm finally passed, the destruction was total. Half the Mongol fleet was destroyed. 4,000 ships lay at the bottom of Hakata Bay. Over 100,000 Mongol warriors were dead, drowned in the storm, killed when their ships broke apart, or washed ashore where Japanese warriors slaughtered them. The surviving Mongol commanders didn't even try to continue the invasion. They fled back to China and Korea with what little remained of their forces. Kublai Khan would never attempt to invade Japan again. The Mongol Empire, which had conquered half the known world, was defeated by weather. So what really happened here? Was it divine intervention or just bad luck? Modern meteorologists have studied historical weather patterns in the Sea of Japan, and here's what they found. Typhoons strike this region every single year between July and November. The Japanese knew this. They'd lived with these storms for centuries. They planned their fishing seasons around them. They built their houses to withstand the winds. The Mongols didn't know this. They were continental warriors who'd never operated at sea. Korean advisors probably warned them about typhoon season, but Mongol commanders ignored the advice. They'd conquered everyone else through superior force. They assumed Japan would be the same. But you can't conquer a typhoon with cavalry and arrows. The numbers are staggering. Across both invasions, the Mongols lost about 4,000 ships and 120,000 warriors to storms. That's more than died in most major land battles of the era. For comparison, the Battle of Cannae, where Hannibal destroyed Rome's army, killed 70,000 Romans. The Mongol Typhoons killed almost twice that many in a single night. Here's what makes this even more remarkable. Modern scientific studies have found physical evidence of both typhoons. Marine archaeologists discovered Mongol shipwrecks off the coast of Japan. They found weapons, armor, pottery, and even the remains of warriors still chained to the sunken vessels. In 2011, Japanese researchers used sonar to map the seafloor of Hakata Bay. They found hundreds of Mongol ships buried in the mud, exactly where historical records said they sank in 1281. The storms were real, the destruction was real, and the impact on history was enormous. If those typhoons hadn't struck, Japan almost certainly would have fallen. The Mongol army was too large, too experienced, and too well equipped for Japanese samurai to stop. Japanese culture as we know it might not exist. Instead of samurai, geisha, and Shinto traditions, Japan might have become another province of the Mongol Empire, with Mongol customs, Mongol government, and Mongol culture. The Kamikaze typhoons didn't just save Japan from invasion, they preserved Japanese civilization itself. And here's the dark legacy. 650 years later, during World War II, Japan was losing again. American forces were advancing across the Pacific. Japanese military leaders knew they couldn't stop the invasion. So they revived the ancient legend. They called their suicide pilots Kamikaze, divine wind, after the storms that had saved Japan in 1274 and 1281. They believed that sacrificing pilots in suicide attacks would create the same miraculous result. It didn't work. The Americans kept coming. Japan surrendered in 1945, but the Kamikaze legend had become so powerful that Japanese leaders were willing to sacrifice thousands of young men based on a myth about medieval typhoons. That's the lasting power of these storms. They didn't just change history in 1274 and 1281. They shaped Japanese national identity for 700 years. So here's what we can learn from the Kamikaze typhoons. First, geography matters more than we think. Japan's island geography and seasonal weather patterns provided natural defenses that military force alone couldn't overcome. The Mongols could defeat any human army, but they couldn't defeat the ocean and the sky. Second, timing is everything in warfare. If the Mongols had invaded in spring or early summer, before typhoon season, they likely would have succeeded. Their defeat wasn't inevitable. It was the result of poor planning and ignorance of local conditions. Third, nature doesn't care about your reputation. The Mongols had conquered the largest empire in human history. They destroyed every army that opposed them. They were considered invincible. And then a storm killed 100,000 of them in a single night. Fourth, luck plays a bigger role in history than we admit. We like to think that great leaders, brilliant strategies, and superior tactics determine the outcome of wars. Sometimes they do. But sometimes a typhoon shows up at exactly the right moment and changes everything. The Mongol invasions of Japan weren't decided by samurai courage or Mongol strategy. They were decided by wind, waves, and the rotation of the earth, creating massive tropical storms at precisely the moment when 140,000 warriors were trapped on wooden ships in a narrow bay. That's not divine intervention. That's just weather. But it changed the course of history just as much as any battle, any general, or any weapon ever did. 2 typhoons, 2 invasions, 120,000 dead, and Japan remained unconquered for another 660 years, until American bombers arrived in 1945, flying above the storms. Nature was the ultimate weapon in 1274 and 1281. It defeated an empire that no human army could stop. Maybe we should remember that the next time we think technology and military power can overcome everything. The Mongols learned the hard way. Sometimes the weather wins. If you want to see more ancient battles where nature played a decisive role, hit subscribe. Next video, how a sandstorm saved the First Crusade at Antioch. Drop a comment. What other historical battles were decided by weather? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.